The grand hall of the empire stretched wide and high, a palace of shining crystals and silver floors that reflected the light of thousands of hovering orbs. Aliens of every shape and color filled the hall, their eyes sharp and calculating. Some were tall, thin, with skin like molten metal. Others were short, with multiple arms and faces that seemed to move independently. Every one of them looked toward the center, where a small dais held the fate of peace in their galaxy. Princess Lyra stood on the dais, her hands folded carefully in front of her. Her silver-blue robes shimmered under the light, and her long hair fell like a river of night behind her shoulders. She was perfect in appearance, yet inside her chest her heart pounded with worry. She knew what this gathering was about, yet she had no choice in it. Politics, alliances, peace, they demanded her life as a chess piece. And now all eyes were on her. Ambassador stepped forward, a tall with golden feathers fanning out from his shoulders. His voice echoed through the hall, rich and commanding. "Esteemed leaders of the galaxy," he began, "we have gathered here to bring peace where conflict has lingered too long. Our empires have clashed, our people have suffered, and yet hope still exists." His gaze swept the crowd, and for a moment silence hung over the hall. Every being waited, tense and uneasy. Took a deep breath. "For the sake of lasting peace, I propose a union between our heir, Princess Lyra, and the human representative, Captain Elias." The hall erupted in whispers, gasps, and sharp exclamations. The humans, fragile, weak creatures who had no history of interstellar dominance. The idea was unthinkable. Many of the alien leaders frowned, some laughed, and others simply stared, unsure what to make of it. Lyra felt her knees weaken. She had heard stories about humans, stories that painted them as weak, short-lived, and unpredictable. Yet here stood one, calm and unshakable, tall and solid, watching the assembly without fear. Even now he did not bow, did not plead for favor, did not look small among these towering beings. Instead, he stood like he belonged in the palace, his dark eyes scanning the room, steady and unblinking. His voice echoed again, louder this time. "Captain, do you accept this union for the sake of peace?" Elias stepped forward, moving with a quiet confidence that made several council members flinch. His voice, calm and clear, carried through the hall. "I accept," he said, nothing more, nothing less, no arrogance, no hesitation, just certainty. The council muttered in confusion. How could this human be so calm, so unafraid? Some whispered that the human was foolish, blind to the dangers of alien politics. Others dared to hope. Perhaps they thought there was more to humans than history suggested. Lyra's eyes widened. She had imagined a meeting with this stranger filled with tension, maybe fear. But instead, she felt a strange pull, an unexplainable curiosity. His presence was strong yet gentle, powerful yet patient. She didn't understand it, but it made her heart beat faster. The ceremony would come later, but already the princess felt the weight of what was happening. Her life, her world, and the fragile peace of the galaxy now balanced on the edge of a single human's resolve. The whispers around her spoke of politics, of duty, of tradition. But she sensed something more, something that the council could not yet see. Elias moved slightly closer, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. There was no intimidation, no expectation, just a quiet assurance as if to say, "I will not fail. Not you, not anyone." And in that moment, standing under the shining lights of the palace, surrounded by doubt and suspicion, Princess Lyra felt the tiniest spark of hope. Perhaps this human, fragile, mortal, underestimated by every alien in the galaxy, was something different, something extraordinary. Something that could change everything. The sun hung low over the palace gardens, casting long golden shadows across the marble paths. Princess Lyra walked slowly, her mind still tangled in thoughts from the grand hall. The idea of marrying a human for peace had seemed impossible at first, yet here she was, about to meet him in a private setting for the first time. Her heart fluttered nervously, though she tried to keep her expression calm. Elias waited near the fountain, tall and composed, the wind teasing his dark hair. He watched the water ripple, then looked up as she approached. His eyes met hers, steady and calm, and for a moment Lyra felt as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them. There was no ceremony here, no council, no alien whispers, just him. "Princess Lyra," he said softly, bowing his head slightly, "it's an honor to meet you outside of the hall." Lyra nodded, unsure of what to say. The stories she had been told about humans had prepared her for arrogance or weakness, but this man, he was neither. He was calm, respectful, and somehow confident without being overbearing. They walked along the garden paths in silence at first. Lyra's eyes wandered over the delicate flowers, the strange alien flora cultivated to perfection in the palace. Still, her mind kept returning to him. There was something unusual in the way he carried himself, a quiet strength, a patience that she found oddly comforting. "You fight, don't you?" she asked suddenly, curiosity pushing past her caution. Elias smiled faintly, not proud, not boastful. "I protect," he said simply, "and sometimes I surprise." Lyra frowned slightly. His words were cryptic, but there was an undeniable truth in them. She had seen humans in stories, on battlefields far from here, and none had ever seemed capable of the kind of precision and strategy that others claimed he possessed. And yet here he was, calm and almost serene. They continued their walk, the silence between them no longer tense but thoughtful. Lyra found herself stealing glances at him, noticing small details. The way he moved with purpose, the faint scar on his hand, the calm determination in his eyes. Every step he took seemed deliberate yet effortless. "You don't seem afraid of us," she said finally, her voice soft, almost questioning. Elias turned to her, meeting her gaze with honesty. "Why should I be?" he asked. "I don't need to fear those who underestimate me." The words startled her. It was true, every alien in the council had doubted him, judged him, dismissed him. Yet he faced them all without fear, without anger, without arrogance. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. Perhaps humans were stronger than anyone had ever imagined. A soft breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of alien blooms and the distant sounds of the city beyond the palace walls. Lyra realized she had been holding her breath. Meeting him like this, away from the ceremony, away from the expectations, she saw not just a human, but a person of remarkable depth. "I don't know what to expect from this marriage," she admitted quietly. "I've been taught things, that humans are weak, that you cannot survive in our world." Elias shook his head slowly. "You've been taught stories, princess. I am not here to follow them. I am here to protect what matters, to fight when needed, and to honor those I care about. You will see the truth soon enough." Lyra nodded, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps he was more than the legends and fears suggested. Something in her heart whispered that this union, though born of politics, might carry something far greater than duty. And in that moment, walking beside him, she understood. Strength comes in many forms, and humans might just be the strongest she had ever known. The peace of the empire was fragile, like glass trembling in the wind. Even as the ceremonial arrangements continued, dark news reached the palace. A fleet from the coalition, longtime rivals of the, was moving toward the empire's borders. Their ships were vast, armed with weapons capable of destroying entire cities. Princess Lyra's heart sank. She had always been taught that humans were fragile, weak, incapable of standing against the might of alien armies. Yet she had spent hours with Elias, and something in him did not seem fragile at all. There was a calm determination in his eyes that made her wonder if he truly understood power in ways the council never could. The council chamber buzzed with panic as the reports were delivered. Generals shouted orders, advisors argued, and ambassadors demanded action. "We must act immediately," one elder cried. "Our defenses will not hold." Lyra felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The pressure was unbearable, and yet all eyes turned toward Elias. He had not commanded an army before, at least not in their eyes. He was just a human, a species they had long underestimated. Elias stood quietly at the edge of the chamber, observing the chaos. He did not panic. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he scanned the tactical maps, studied the positions of enemy ships, and noted the weaknesses in their formation. His mind worked like a machine, methodical and precise. "You underestimate them," he said softly, addressing the council. "They think they can strike first. They rely on numbers and intimidation, but every movement they make is predictable if you watch carefully." A murmur ran through the council. Some sneered. "A human dares tell us how to fight." Lyra's heart pounded. She felt a strange mixture of fear and admiration. The humans in the stories were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to break under pressure. And yet, here stood Elias, calm, analyzing, and ready. "We need a plan," he continued. "Not just a reaction. I will coordinate the defenses and I will lead the strike teams, but we must act smart, not rely on brute force alone." The council hesitated. Finally, a general stepped forward. "Very well," he said reluctantly. "Lead us, human, show us what you can do." Elias nodded once. That was all, no arrogance, no threats, just certainty. Lyra watched him prepare, the quiet focus in his eyes almost hypnotic. The fear she had felt earlier began to shift. Perhaps humans were not fragile. Perhaps they were capable of things the galaxy had never seen. As the fleet neared, the first alarm sounded. Alien ships scrambled into formation, their engines roaring. Lyra clutched the edge of the balcony, her heart in her throat. The humans had no history of victory in such battles. They were supposed to flee. But Elias remained calm. He issued orders with clarity, moving among the commanders with confidence. Every decision was precise. Every movement anticipated the enemy. Lyra felt a strange awe building inside her. This human, this man who had seemed quiet and unassuming, was something extraordinary. And she realized, in a way she had not before, that this marriage, meant to secure peace through politics, might actually hinge on the strength of a single human's mind, courage, and heart. The fleet was coming. The galaxy was about to witness something no one expected. A human standing not as a pawn, but as a force to be reckoned with. Dawn broke over the Empire's skies, painting the clouds in streaks of gold and crimson. The alarm sirens blared through the palace and the city below as the fleet darkened the horizon, vast ships bristling with energy weapons and missiles. The air seemed to hum with tension. Every citizen, every soldier held their breath. Princess Lyra stood at the balcony, her heart racing. Fear clawed at her chest, but a strange sense of hope kept her rooted. She had watched Elias work calmly in the council chamber, directing strategy with quiet authority. But would that calm be enough when the enemy's fire rained down? The first attack came suddenly. A cruiser, massive and sleek, descended from the clouds, its weapons firing streams of deadly energy. Alien ships scrambled to intercept, but confusion spread. Many generals shouted conflicting orders, and the forces hesitated, unsure of the humans' plan. Elias did not hesitate. He moved among the command ships, issuing clear, precise orders. "Split the fleet here. Use the smaller cruisers to flank. Don't engage head-on until they tire themselves. Wait for my signal." His voice was calm but sharp. Every alien around him felt the authority, even if they doubted him. Princess Lyra watched in awe. The humans she had been taught to dismiss as weak were now commanding fleets with more skill and foresight than many alien generals. Her chest swelled with a mix of pride and disbelief. Could this human really turn the tide of war? The enemy cruiser aimed directly at the palace, its weapons charged for destruction. Panic erupted among the council and the royal guards. Lyra froze, unable to move, her hands gripping the balcony edge. The cries of soldiers and advisors filled the air, but Elias was already moving. In a small, sleek fighter, the human soared into the sky. He maneuvered with speed and precision no pilot could match. The enemy cruiser fired repeatedly, but Elias dodged effortlessly, weaving between beams with uncanny timing. With a calculated strike, he disabled the cruiser's main energy core without harming the surrounding city. Lyra gasped. She had never imagined a human could act with such courage, such skill, and such calm under fire. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with awe. The council watched silently, their previous doubts melting away into shock and wonder. The battle continued. Every move was anticipated by Elias, every attack countered with brilliance. Smaller alien ships moved where he commanded, larger ships struck with precision. Lyra could hardly keep track of the choreography in the sky, but the results were clear. The human strategy was working. For the first time, Lyra understood that power was more than size, more than weapons. Power was vision, courage, and the refusal to bend under pressure. Elias was proof. Every human might not be a warrior, but this human, this one, could change the course of history. As the sun rose higher, the enemy began to retreat. The Empire had survived the first wave, and it was thanks to him. Elias returned to the palace balcony, his armor scuffed but his expression calm. He offered no boast, no triumphal gesture, just a quiet acknowledgement of duty fulfilled. Princess Lyra stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved us. You saved the Empire." He shook his head. "We saved it together," he said. And even in those simple words, Lyra sensed something extraordinary, a human's courage and mind working beyond limits. For the first time, she believed that this marriage might not just secure peace, it could reshape the galaxy entirely. The coalition was relentless. After their first wave failed, they regrouped, bringing every ship, every weapon, and every soldier they could muster. The Empire's skies filled with the hum of engines and the crackle of energy weapons. Panic threatened to rise again, but Elias stood at the center of the command hall, calm as ever. Princess Lyra watched him from the balcony, her chest tight with fear and admiration. Every human she had known in stories had been weak, fragile, a species barely able to defend themselves. But Elias, he moved with the certainty of someone who understood not just battle, but life itself. Each decision he made was precise, deliberate, and fearless. "Divide the fleet into 3 wings," Elias instructed. "The outer wings will feint attacks and draw them out. The center will hold back, preserving energy. When they are exposed, we strike their command ship directly, take out their leadership, and the rest will fall apart." The council muttered doubts. "A human, you expect us to follow a human plan," one elder hissed. Lyra's heart leapt. She had seen him before in the first wave, outmaneuver the enemy without even raising his voice. The thought of doubting him now seemed impossible. Elias stepped onto the tactical bridge, his eyes scanning the hollow map of the battlefield. Every formation, every ship's movement, every weapons, he predicted it all. His mind worked like a living machine, processing variables faster than any alien technology could measure. The battle began. The fleet attacked with fury, but Elias' strategy unfolded perfectly. Ships moved like shadows across the sky, striking, retreating, and restriking in ways the enemy could not anticipate. The outer wings drew thee away, just as he predicted. The center held firm, as if frozen in time. And then came the strike. Elias himself led a squadron toward the command ship, weaving between volleys of fire with almost impossible precision. Explosions lit the sky, but none touched him or his ships. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. He moved like a force of nature, untouchable, unstoppable. Each maneuver he made seemed impossible, yet flawless. And when he reached the command ship, he struck at its core systems with surgical precision. The ship faltered, then collapsed inward, a shining beacon of defeat. The remaining ships faltered, confusion spreading through their ranks. Without leadership, without order, they began retreating. The Empire had not just survived, they had won. Lyra's chest felt tight with emotion. She had watched countless battles, known many generals, and yet none had moved her like this human had. Not with brute force, not with explosions, but with intelligence, courage, and sheer will. Elias returned to the palace as the enemy fled, his armor scorched, his face calm. No celebration, no boastful grin, just a man who had done what needed to be done. Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling. You are incredible. I have never seen anything like this." He looked at her, his eyes soft but firm. "Incredible is just a word, princess. Courage, strategy, and determination, these are what matter, and everyone, even humans, can rise to this when it counts." The council, once skeptical, bowed to him. Aliens whispered in astonishment. Humans, they realized, were not weak, not ever. And this one human, this quiet, calm man, had turned the tide of a battle that no one thought could be won. For Princess Lyra, the truth was undeniable. This political marriage, once a duty she feared, now carried the promise of something far greater. Safety, hope, and the realization that the human she was to wed was not just an ally, he was a force that could shape the galaxy. And in that moment, she understood why the universe had underestimated humans for so long. They were not fragile. They were unstoppable when the time came. The battle was over, yet the echoes of it lingered in every corner of the Empire. Smoke rose from shattered ships, and the wounded were being carried to the medical chambers. Princess Lyra stood in the palace gardens, her hands trembling slightly as she watched Elias walk among the soldiers. He moved calmly, checking on every crew member, every pilot, every soldier, offering words of encouragement, and sometimes just a reassuring glance. She had expected him to be a great fighter, a clever tactician, but this was something different. Elia's strength was not just in combat or strategy, it was in his humanity. He cared deeply for those around him. He inspired courage simply by his presence. Aliens who had doubted him now followed his instructions without hesitation, their fear replaced by awe. Lyra's chest felt heavy with emotions she could hardly name. Pride, awe, admiration, and something else, quieter, more tender. She realized that in the days she had spent with him, in the midst of danger and uncertainty, her heart had started to change. She had begun to trust him not just as a warrior, but as a person who could shoulder the weight of an entire empire's safety, and perhaps even her own heart. Elias approached her, slowly wiping soot from his armor. "Are you unharmed, princess?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lyra nodded, her voice catching. "Yes, thanks to you." He shook his head softly. "No one does this alone. Courage is contagious. You have it too, Lyra. You stood here while everyone else panicked. That takes a strength I admire." Her eyes widened. The compliment, so simple and honest, struck her more deeply than any grand gesture could have. She had been taught that humans were weak, incapable, unpredictable, but here was proof to the contrary. Not only could he lead fleets and outmaneuver the enemy, but he could also see the value in others, lift their spirits, and make them stronger. For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of real hope, a belief that this marriage, born of politics and duty, could become something meaningful. Not just for peace, not just for the empire, but for her. They walked together through the gardens, the air still heavy with smoke but filled now with the quiet murmurs of recovery. Lyra stole glances at Elias. He seemed ordinary at first glance, just a human with dark hair and steady eyes. Yet she had seen what few others could. She had seen courage, wisdom, and a quiet fire that refused to die. She realized that he carried a weight none should, and yet he bore it without complaint. "You are different," she admitted quietly. Elias smiled faintly. "Different is just a word. I do what I must. I protect those who cannot protect themselves, that is all." Lyra wanted to believe him, but she also wanted to tell him that he had changed her world already. That his courage had ignited something inside her she had never felt before. Yet words felt fragile compared to the enormity of the moment. Instead, she stayed silent, walking beside him, letting his presence fill the spaces her fear had once occupied. She realized that trust was growing between them, quietly, naturally. And with trust came something more: admiration, respect, and perhaps the first stirrings of affection. For the first time since the marriage had been arranged, Lyra did not feel trapped. She felt empowered. She felt hope. And she understood clearly that this human, her human, was not just a protector or a warrior. He was a force that could change hearts, minds, and perhaps the very destiny of the galaxy itself. And in that quiet moment, she made a choice. She would follow him, trust him, and stand by him, not just as a princess, but as someone who believed in the extraordinary power of humanity. The sun had set, leaving the Empire bathed in the soft glow of distant stars. The battle was over, and the coalition had retreated, broken, and humiliated. The Empire was safe, but more than that, a new respect had taken root, not just for strategy or strength, but for humanity. Princess Lyra walked beside Elias through the palace corridors, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The weight of duty and fear still lingered, but now it was joined by something else: hope, admiration, and a deep, quiet understanding. "You truly are extraordinary," she whispered, her voice carrying both awe and affection. Elias shook his head with a modest smile. "Extraordinary is not a human trait, princess. Courage, determination, and doing what must be done, anyone can rise to it. But thank you." Lyra studied him, really studied him. Every scar, every movement, every calm decision he had made on the battlefield. She remembered them all. In a galaxy that doubted humans, that dismissed their potential, this one human had not only protected an empire, but inspired it. He had done what no alien general could: turned fear into confidence, despair into hope. The council and citizens gathered in the palace courtyard as news of the victory spread. They bowed, whispered, and some even cheered. Aliens who had scorned humans now looked at them with a new curiosity, a new respect. Humans were no longer just a footnote in galactic history, they were a force that could not be ignored. Lyra's gaze found Elia's once more. She realized the union between them, once political and cold, had grown into something far deeper. Respect, trust, and a quiet bond had formed between them in the fires of battle. She no longer feared the marriage, she welcomed it. She wanted to stand beside him, not just as a princess, but as someone who had seen the truth of humanity firsthand. Elia's placed a gentle hand over hers. Princess, this is only the beginning. Peace is fragile and the galaxy will always test it. But together we can face whatever comes, not as ruler and consort, but as allies, as partners. Lyra felt a shiver of warmth run through her. She nodded, understanding that this was more than a promise. It was a pledge to the people, to the galaxy, and to each other. In the days that followed, the Empire changed. Humans were no longer underestimated. Aliens began to study their methods, their courage, their creativity. Alliances strengthened. The Empire, once cautious and wary, now thrived under the guidance of a human and a princess who had learned to trust not just politics, but heart. Lyra watched Elias train young cadets in the courtyard, his calm authority inspiring even the most doubtful soldiers. Children laughed as he demonstrated tactics with patience, while seasoned generals observed, learning from him. He did not seek glory. He did not boast. He simply lived his values, and the results spoke for themselves. That night under the stars, Lyra stood beside him once more. "I understand now," she said softly. "Humans, you are more than we ever imagined, not just strong, but capable of changing the world." Elias looked up at the stars, his expression steady. "We all have the power to rise, princess. Sometimes the universe just needs someone to show the way." She smiled, a mix of relief, admiration, and something tender stirring in her heart. Together they looked out at the galaxy, a universe full of challenges, threats, and possibilities. And yet, for the first time, Lyra felt certain that no force, alien or human, could match the strength of courage, intelligence, and the human spirit. The stars shone brighter that night, as if acknowledging the truth the galaxy had learned. Humans were here and they would shape the future. And at the center of that change stood Elias and Princess Lyra, united not only by duty, but by the extraordinary bond of trust, courage, and hope. A new era had begun, and the galaxy would never forget it.